Hey everybody, welcome back to Fallout Equestria. This time we're doing chapter 16. I don't have a lot of time. We're only going to do the first 15 minutes because I got to get going.
Manhattan.
So, let's
Just
go.
over 200 years ago, it was a thriving, bustling metropolis. Manhattan was hailed as the most cosmopolitan city in all of Equestria. Millions of ponies lived or worked in the city, and was home to some of the most elite circles of equestrian society. Then, in an instant, Manhattan was gone. Millions of pony lives were consumed in a flash of light, heat, and magical energy. Hundreds of thousands more were killed by the shockwaves and the eldritch green fires that incinerated virtually everything that was left standing.
Yeah.
Now, all that remained of Manhattan in the aftermath of that apocalypse were the Manhattan ruins.
Oh,
Miles
I
upon...
just thought of this. You know what would be cool? A Fallout game in New York City. You know, you have Manhattan Island, you have New York City. Oh, that would be awesome.
miles of maze-like urban devastation and ashes under the shadows of skeletal skyscrapers that rose out of the wreckage like monolithic tombstones. A pony might wonder how such a holocaust could have been allowed to happen. How could Equestria's enemies have smuggled such a cataclysmic weapon into the very heart of our grandest and largest metropolis?
ICBMs didn't
I
exist,
found it
did
was
they?
much easier to understand now that I knew that the most significant public transportation company in Manhattan was run by trader ponies loyal to Equestria's enemies,
Okay,
and
that
that the
explains
basement
it.
of this very facility had been the staging ground for zebra operations within our homeland. I stared into the eyes of the zebra zombies and realized that this was how they had gotten the balefire bomb into Manhattan. That these zebras had been responsible for the murder of millions. I also realized that the mini-stable under 4 stars fell far short in stable tech's quality. For all the harm stable techs playing around had done, those ponies really knew how to build a survival shelter.
If only
This
that's all
inferior
they
stable
did.
had not been able to stop magical radiation from bleeding in, transforming the zebras and almost a dozen ponies it had been intended to protect into the ghoulish creatures before me. And yes, I realized that they might not be zombie zebras so much as ghoul zebras. I'd say I didn't care, but part of me actually hoped that they were ghouls as I stepped back out of the way. Steelhooves, give 'em everything you've got. The fog lifted by mid-afternoon, revealing the graveyard of the Manhattan ruins beneath a sky of rolling, angry gray. We walked above it, traveling single file along one of the twin monorails of the Luna Line, looking back down on the blocks of city rubble below. In all directions we saw collapsed and gutted buildings, blackened chariots and wagons, detritus and blown litter that had congregated about the metal shafts of shattered street lamps. No skeletons, though. The living creatures of Manhattan had been reduced to nothing more than ash, mixing with the ash from a billion other sources as it was carried by the wind. I was beginning to spot a few small places where green balefire still burned. I wonder how even balefire could have survived for centuries. The wind
That's a
carried
good
particles of
question.
rust and ash, as well as the smells of the urban graveyard. A symphony of creaks and groans haunted the city, mixing with the sounds of shifting and crumbling concrete and the hammering of wind-blown metal. Occasional staccatos of gunfire, usually distant and carried on echoes, reminded us that there were raiders, scavengers, and other ponies lurking in hidden streets and darkened structures.
It's kind
A
of
flash
reminding
green
me
and
of
gold shot
Boston from
past us
Fallout
behind.
4.
A magnificent
Just
bird,
no
both
Diamond City.
terrifying and graceful, which spread its wings and circled as if taking in our measure. Its eyes seemed to glow, and licks of balefire fell from its beak. "What is that?" Velvet Remedy asked with a tone of awe before I could find the words to ask for myself. "Balefire, Phoenix," Steelhooves replied, whistling slightly. The green and gold bird completed its circle, then swooped down and away, disappearing from sight as it threaded through shadowed alleys.
Cool.
We began to move again, all except Velvet Remedy, who just stood there as if mesmerized. She turned to Steelhooves, breathing demandingly. "Tell me about them." Whinnying, we halted again. Interesting fact about traveling single file: if one pony stops, unless they're at the back, travel tends to stop with them. I found myself staring at a ruined billboard whose bottle of Sparkle Cola Rad actually seemed to glow. It's like a buck in the face, with radishes. Billboards littered the sky along Luna Line like weeds. The Manhattan Gardens was the largest wildlife sanctuary of its kind, home to the most exotic and admired creatures,
Gotcha.
all of which were instantly cremated when the zebra's balefire bomb detonated.
But Phonics
Steelhooves
is...
explained.
Oh.
Of course, a phoenix doesn't exactly have the same relationship with being turned to ash that most creatures do.
Right.
Steelhooves chuckled. "I wouldn't think of trying to domesticate one. They breathe fire."
Could
A
be
battered
useful.
sea blue mare fled out of a doorless storefront and started running down the street, tears streaming from her eyes as she screamed. A dozen raider ponies, each carrying a brutal weapon and wearing an old roller derby helmet, came tearing out of the building after her, jumping out the windows and charging out the door, whooping and laughing. "Help me!" She stumbled as she ran, her gait hobbled. Blood ran down between her thighs. I could see her bleeding through my scope. "Please, somebody help me!" She'd already been raped repeatedly. Now they had let her go and were chasing her for sport. From the height of the Luna line, we were too far for Sats to effectively lock on, so I trailed the scope in front of the first raider, a mottled brown and gray pony with a cutie mark of a skull with burning eyes, aiming for where he was about to be as Calamity instructed. "Good. Now keep her steady and squeeze out a burst." I magically pulled the trigger. 3 shots spat out of the scoped zebra assault carbine. Silenced weapons, I learned, were not really silent, but the dampened sound was lost in the wind, and the weight of the silencer helped soften the recoil and keep the rifle on target between bullets.
Right.
The raider pony burst into flame. He fell to the ground, screaming and thrashing. I stepped back, floating up the rifle to check the clip while Calamity took a shot. No, I hadn't accidentally loaded magical bullets. The zebra rifle had enchanted the bullet itself.
That's fucking awesome!
Stick a home where Celestia don't shine. If this was the sort of weapon that zebras had been carrying into the battlefield. The screams of the victim mare below wrenched my attention back to the battle. Calamity fired off a second shot. Pulling the scope into my eyes, I saw that 3 of the raiders were now dead, one of the corpses burning in the street, and the others were scattering. The panicking mare screamed, her hooves catching on a toppled street lamp, and fell, skidding across the debris-strewn street. One of the raiders was still charging towards her. I swung my scope towards him, and froze as I really saw him. One of the rapists had been a blank-flanked colt. I stared, following the very young pony with the zebra's rifle scope, trembling slightly. He was wearing a Colt's roller derby helmet and clenched a serrated knife in his mouth. I could see blood on him. I focused, the trigger of the zebra rifle moving slightly.
Shoot him!
I couldn't.
Oh.
It was a Colt. Horrified, I watched as the Colt reached the fallen mare, dodging the kicks she threw at him. I heard the crack of gunfire feet from me, and saw the Colt's body rupture bloodily in 2 places, hit with enough force to fling his corpse against a nearby mailbox. I lowered the zebra rifle and turned to stare at Calamity in shock. On the other side of him, Velvet Remedy's eyes were wide. "What?" Calamity asked before flying down to help the mare. "Did I steal your shot?" Ponies love laughter. Zebras do not understand joy and fear it. Ponies are honest. Zebras tell only lies. Ponies are loyal. Zebras will knife you in the back.
That's a lie.
Ponies
We
are
all know
generous.
that.
Zebras are selfish and greedy. Ponies care about each other. Zebras care only for themselves. I stared up at the billboard and thought, wow. That's just wrong, Velvet Remedy said, breaking the uncomfortable silence that had become our traveling companion since Calamity shot the Raider Colt. The twin monorail tracks took a graceful curve, and the billboard was mounted across the flying buttresses of a squat skyscraper, placed so that the train ponies would see it as they approached the turn.
Wait, did they? What happened?
It dominated the view out
is
on one
Mayor
side
with
of the
them now?
elevated train as it took the bend. Calamity had flown off ahead, more to give us space than out of need to scout. The Luna line seemed free of threats. I really wanted a party time mint owl. I didn't have any particular need for one, but I felt myself craving the effects, especially the intellectual boosts. I could just think so much faster, so much more clearly while benefiting from a PTM. I was more aware, my senses more acute. If that's what party time mint owls did for me, I began to wonder what they did for Pinkie Pie.
Ugh.
I found myself thinking about 4 stars again. Based on what we had found at the mini-stable, which wasn't much after Steelhoof's ordnance was finished with the zebras, the Ministry of Morale raid must have happened the same morning that the Balefire bomb was set off. It occurred to me that the Megaspell was probably in transit when they attacked. The Ministry of Morale had brought in Steel Rangers. They knew what they were heading into called for big guns. Knowing where to look, who to interrogate. Did that come from the skill of the ponies in her employment? Or did Pinkie Pie herself discern these things with the power of PTM-enhanced acumen?
Yeah.
Biased, I presume the latter.
Yeah.
No matter the negative effects she might have suffered from PTM addiction, Pinkie Pie had intuition that bordered on precognition. The traitors were terrified of her ministry. She had them paranoid and scurrying.
'Cause they're the
And
secret
no matter what
police.
anybody might say about either her or her ministry, Pinkie Pie had come heartbreakingly close to saving Manhattan. I stopped, looking out over the desolate urban maze. Millions of ponies had died there, their salvation racing the clock and losing. I had to find something else to think about. I switched on DJ Pony's radio broadcast, listening to it on my earbloom. It was merely a distraction. I knew all the songs by heart now. I hoped DJ Pony found something in the records.
I want to talk about what just
worthy of
happened, but
Hispanic musical
I think it
repertoire.
might come up, so I'm going to keep
This just
listening.
in, DJ Pony announced between songs. Just got a report that a weak distress signal can be heard near the Horseshoe Tower. Seems like Blackwing's talons have managed to get themselves in over their beaks. Well, don't worry, Blackwing. Horseshoe Tower is pretty close to Sheriff Rottingtail's territory. Maybe some of his ghouls will be willing to lend you a hoof. Oh, wait, that's right. You and your mercs slaughtered them all. Well, good luck with that. This is DJ Pony reminding every pony in the equestrian wasteland, you reap what you sow. Calamity
Karma.
was flying back towards us. I turned off the radio on my pit buck as he landed on the monorail. Y'all gonna love this. Several minutes later, we had trotted far enough along the curve to see what Calamity had told us about. Ahead, the Celestial line crossed over the Luna line. About 20 feet above Luna line, running perpendicular to the twin monorails below, the dark underside of the twin Celestial rails struck me as bizarrely textured, giving me the creeps. Well, how do we get up there? Velvet Remedy scoffed.
I'm having a
Calamity rolled
hard
his eyes
time
and fluttered his
imagining
wings.
this.
I carry y'all up there, how? Except I'm thinking our Steel Ranger friend is a mite heavy for me. I can levitate him up as you carry me, I offered. Calamity nodded. All right then, just be careful, little Pip. You don't want to disturb the Bloodwings. Bloodwings?
The what?
I floated out the binoculars, peering through them at the Celestial line, and cringed with a gasp. The shadowed underbellies of the monorails were covered with the grotesque leathery forms of dozens
monorails.
of giant mutant bats.
I thought
Yep,
they were train
I
rails.
think we best make good time to 10 Pony. Reckon we don't want to be outside in the open come nightfall. As difficult as it was to get onto the Celestial line, getting off the monorail was easy. Twilight was falling as we rounded a bend and were met with a graceful arch of tarnished silver which flowed up and over the monorails. Through the arch, we could finally see 10 Pony Tower.
Alright,
and
now
its
that I
surprisingly
know they're
well-preserved
monorails,
splendor.
okay.
We'd been catching glimpses of it above and between the buildings for hours, but only now could we really take in the size and ornateness of the structure. Light glowed behind more than half of the windows, most of which bore fractures but were fully intact. The building narrowed every dozen.
Alright, it probably already explained or it might come up, but what happened to the mayor? Like, what happened to the... Oh, I probably missed it. Probably said something. But, like, anyways, I said shoot the cult. I fucking mean it. He lost all... basically, you become a raider. Like, a rapist, cannibal, what? Raider. They're all raiders to me. Because they all basically do the same shit. You lose all rights. You are not... Well, Pony, but you are not a human being anymore. You have lost all rights. Okay? Raiders, if they were a thing in real life, they would probably be put on the document called the Enemies of Humanity. It's a thing. It's an actual thing. That the UN had crafted this document called the Enemies of Humanity. And they're a list of people who don't have human rights. There are pirates, slavers. It's basically a list of those kind of people. And if raiders are real, they'd be on that list. So, at least I feel they would. So, if you're a raider, I don't give a fuck. I don't care if you're a cult. If you're a raider, you have lost all rights. Okay? I don't give a fuck how old you are. You deserve death. You know, Lil Pip, okay, I get it, but you admitted it. He was one of the rapists. He's a raider. Just shoot him. He's not a cult anymore. Okay? I know that might seem a little hard, but this stuff's important to me. It's important to me. So, fuck you. Whatever your cult was. Again, it probably mentioned it. I think it did. I missed it. But what happened to the mayor? I'll go back and read it. Well, it's almost 15 minutes. I gotta get going, guys. See you either later today or tomorrow.